Hi, everybody. Lee Scott here. Thank you for watching and or listening to this week's episode of Leading with Lee, where we talk about life, leadership, and legacy. We want to help you unleash your capacity and level of leadership. I'm so excited because I got a very, very, very special guest today. But before I introduce him, if you had not done it yet, go and subscribe to Leading with Lee right now on YouTube and all podcasting platforms. Well, my guest today is someone I profoundly admire. I think he is one of the best leaders that I've met over the last year or so. We've got an opportunity to engage over the last year because he's one of my fellow Change Collective fam, and it's been so great. But he's also right now finished up his master's at Jackson State, and he is a candidate for Hinds County Election Commission, District 3. Please welcome to Leading with Lee, my friend, Jermany Gray. How you doing, Jermany?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much, Lee, for having me here. You know, I've been keeping up with the show, and I love what you're doing, so I really appreciate it.
Yeah. I thank you for tuning in. So let's jump right in. I want to give you a few moments to kind of share about who you are, the things that you're doing, and kind of give you a little bit of time, kind of to just share your story with our listeners and watchers.
Thank you so much, Lee. My name is Jermany Gray, like the country, but with a J. And I am from the city of Soul, Jackson, Mississippi, specifically South Jackson. I went to the best high school, Murrah High School. I know that's a little bit debatable.
Let them know, Jermany. Let them know.
Yes, I went to Murrah High School. And after high school, I went to the illustrious Dillard University in New Orleans, Louisiana, where I obtained my bachelor's degree in political science with a minor focus in criminal justice, urban studies, and public policy. After graduating, I wanted to return home because I said that if I was going to make an impact in this world anywhere, it needs to be in my home. And so I came back home and I enrolled in the Master's of Public Policy and Public Administration program at Jackson State University, the Jackson State. And I am currently on track to finish that program soon. And in addition to my studies, I also just wanted to be very active in the community. And so I've been doing work with different organizations like Capital City Pride, My Brother's Keeper, League of Women Voters, Mississippi Vote, Southern Echo, all around just trying to make an impact and create change in the way that I can. Like Lee mentioned, we were also a part of this new organization or this new leadership development program called the Change Collective. And that Change Collective, it was really geared towards creating local leaders that want to create change on this level. And for me, that's really has been a real goal of mine because while I was away, I was keeping up with what was going on in the city. Like I'll say, for example, with my mom, who unfortunately I'll say she passed away from ovarian cancer not too long ago. But before her passing, she was here and she was having to deal with some of the problems that faced the city. For example, the water crisis. You know, when the city went without water for a while, it really affected her. Like during that time, she really had some equipment, had some things that really require water and power and things of that nature. And so she had to go to a hotel, you know, to carry on with her life. And so those problems, and also just the general sense of like hearing about the arguing politicians at the meetings, hearing about the general, yes, you know, hearing about these general turmoil going on with our leaders. That all just played into my motivation to come back home because I do think that Jackson, Mississippi, it has so much potential. I'll say I was in New Orleans. In New Orleans, shout out to my college home. It's such a great city. And also, I'll say during my time, the state of Louisiana, because I will say I was in Louisiana during a time where things were drastically different. I'll say, first off, I had access to Medicaid, through Medicaid expansion, which is something that we do need drastically in Mississippi. Yep. But in addition to having, you know, health care insurance and general health care, the city was also just very walkable. It was also had a great public transportation. It also had a biking system that I really much enjoyed. All around the city was just really great, and it just helped me see a bunch of things that I really wanted to bring back to my home of Jackson. And so now that I'm back, I really want to work to see it be improved. Not only the city of Jackson, I'm also running for a county position. I'm running to be the next Hinds County District 3 Election Commissioner. And so I want to see our county improve, and also just the state of Mississippi, because we really do have the potential to be really one of the best states in this country. I will say, too, of our history. We have a strong history in Mississippi of activism, of change. And I'm thinking back to the Freedom Summer. That was about 60 years ago. The people who organized that said that if we can create change in Mississippi, we can change the nation. And so I think that still rings true. And so with my current role and with my campaign, I really want to inspire change or create change on this level, and hopefully also inspire more young people to run for office, because we do need more young people in these positions. And I do think that will help us move forward. And so I'm so happy to be here. And that's me.
Well, that's great, Jermany. And that kind of leads me into my next question, because I was going to ask you about, what drew you to the work of voting and thinking about ballot access, and kind of what kind of got you to thinking, this is somewhere that I probably could make my contribution.
Yeah, so my biggest motivation so far was the ballot shortage that happened last year. If you're unfamiliar, in Hinds County, there was a massive ballot shortage during our last general election. This was our governor's race, so it was a very important race for the state of Mississippi. And that was my first governor's race. I am a little young, so
we don't hold it against you. That's a benefit.
A little bit, depends on who you ask. But yes, that was my first governor's race, and so I was so happy to be able to vote, for a governor. But it was very disappointing to hear that people were unable to vote, especially in that race. And so after that happened, I went to an election commission meeting, and they eloquently explained to us that happened because of a mistake. And so, at that meeting, I told them that they need to restore the faith in the process, restore the faith to the voters, that we can do elections in Hinds County properly and fairly. And I just thought about it some more, and I just reflected, and I say, why am I, and I will say this is kind of related to my personality in general. I was thinking, why am I asking them to do something that I can do myself? And so I thought about it, and, also going back to my personality, I won't say I complain, but I do raise my concerns, and instead of just, letting it fester or just be that moment, I like to devise a plan, and I like to get to work, and so I thought about it some more. And I will say initially I had some self-doubts. I was like, I will say this with being an elected official, you don't see too many young people in these positions. You don't see, you don't really see yourself, being in that spot. But, I thought about my qualifications. I thought about my education. I also thought about my experience as someone who has always known the value of voting. I will say that kind of just goes back to my upbringing, because I can remember seeing my mom's "I voted" sticker, which I still do love to this day. I love to receive my sticker. And so, and even I'll say with my mom too, as she was transitioning, one thing she made sure to go do before she did pass was go vote. I remember I remember I was driving her. We went to a poll in West Jackson, and so she made sure to go vote. And so the importance of voting has always been instilled in me. And I will say with my education, I always knew that if you wanted to create change, it was through politics. It was through voting. And I also even more, like originally I was going to be a lawyer and a public defender to be exact. But I said that, if you did a career shift, because I said that, lawyers are great and good lawyers are needed. But if you really want to create change, you need to be the people who are making the policies. You need to be the people who are influencing these decisions. And so all around, I've always understood the importance of voting. And with that, not only, again, having the experience, the education to really understand the system better, and above anything, I had the desire to see a change. And I think that's really important, because I think that we have a lot of people who are interested in holding office, are currently holding office, but they may be good fits, but they don't really have a passion to shape the system, to see the system change. And I do think that I really want to see a difference in our community. I just know we have it, Like, we have so much potential. And so all of that inspired me to run for this position. And really, particularly too, I also think I like to trust divine timing. And I think that the timing of me running for this position, I think it's very perfect and very convenient. And also it's very timely. Because I think that right now, especially with everything going on with Kamala Harris, we're going to see very soon, I predict, an emergence of new and young leaders very soon. And also young and diverse. And so I'm happy to be a part of, I'll say, maybe like the early parts of that wave. I really do think we're about to see a really cool evolution in our country.
I mean, Jermany, you literally answered the question that I was about to ask you. I didn't even know it. But I will say that, you know, it's such a beautiful thing to recognize that you had such a great example in your mother. Even in her final days, she said, I'm still going to vote because I think my vote matters that much. Kind of staying right there, you know, one of the biggest things that we are seeing even now, I'm going to go out of order because I think you touched on something that I was going to ask you later, but I think I'll ask you about it now. We're seeing a lot of things happening with just the races that are happening locally, countywide, statewide, nationally. And there seems to be a disconnect in some way, shape, form, or fashion for people to believe that they have a reason to be engaged in the process. Could you talk a little bit about some of your thoughts as it relates to voters knowing their importance, why every election matters, and could you talk a little bit about why voting frequently is so important, and how can voters stay informed?
Yes, I'm just thinking about how this is all systemic in a lot of ways. And for a lot of people, first off, I'm going back to the foundation, which I think is education. A lot of people are not properly informed about voting, or better yet, government in general. And so they don't really understand how important their vote will be or would be if they were frequent voters or are constantly engaged. And so a lot of people, first off, they don't know. And second off, they do know. I will say, I was talking about this earlier at the barbershop. You know, there are so many examples of politicians who are bad actors. Politicians who run for office. Yes, run for office. You know, they come out around election time, tell you about how they're going to do all these great things, and then you never see them again. Or worse, they get into office, and I'm just going to think about our local politics in Jackson. You know, they fall victim to different crimes. They fall victim to temptation, and they stray away from the mission of actually serving the people. People see that, and I'll say jokingly, I think a lot of people. I joked with my friend a little while ago that I feel like sometimes I'm dealing with people who have had a bad ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend. They have like a lot of trauma, rightfully. People have a lot of trauma from bad politicians. And so every time I come in here and I'm like, I'm not going to be like them. I'm going to be good. It's a battle. It's a wall. And it's a wall that needs to be built. You know, a wall of resistance, because so many people have came in and just lied to people. They haven't been truthful. And they just make it hard for people to have hope, people to believe in change. And so in addition to some people not being educated about it or properly educated about politics and government, when they see these bad actors, they see these bad examples, or they see different systems. I'll say even with the presidential race, where we have examples where we have races where the popular vote, you know, one candidate gets the popular vote, but they don't get the electoral vote. And so people think, well, what's the point of me voting at all if my vote didn't lead to this type of result? And then this goes back to having a better understanding of how the system works. But people see all these things, and I will say another element too is that people, and it kind of just goes back to the bad actors, people don't see the connection between their vote and change. because there's people aren't really painting that bridge.
Absolutely.
It goes back to having good actors. When you have good actors, when they get into office and they do good things, like I'll say for me, I voted for Joe Biden, President Biden. And, you know, President Biden, that was my first presidential race. And so when I think about all the good things that President Biden has done, especially for the city of Jackson, like I'll say, if you don't know, part of the reason, well, I'll say go back, was the city of Jackson, we were experiencing, and still are in some ways, a really bad water issue. Our water infrastructure needs to be repaired, and we needed some assistance because our local government, they weren't exactly working together. Our mayor and our governor, they were seemingly at odds somehow about people needing clean water. And so we had federal help step in the form of the Biden administration. And so when I think about like how powerful a vote can be, I think about how my vote helped President Biden be in the position to help my city improve its water infrastructure. To me, and it may be again because I have a clear perception of the bridge between voting and change. I can see how I helped impact change. And I will say it goes back to Joe Biden being a good actor, you know, being somebody who has stepped up and also tried to uphold what he said he was going to do. And so all around, we have to work on improving our education, on having good actors be politicians, and having them actually be accountable, do the change that they promised to voters. And you also asked about the importance of people voting frequently. And I'll hit on that quickly because I am somebody who's running for office right now. Yeah. And while I do think that every voter counts, it is a little bit of a hierarchy system. The voters who vote frequently, they do matter a little bit more than the people who are just registered to vote. You know, that's just, that's just the truth of the matter. That's the truth of the matter, you know. And like I'll say when I'm canvassing, I would love to knock on every single door, talk to every single voter in my district. But the reality is I got limited time. I got limited resources, and I can't do that. So I have to focus on the people who I know will vote.
Get out of vote.
And that's just the reality with most campaigns. I'll say this too. I'm a little bit of a rambler, but I'll say this too. I've been canvassing, right? And I think my approach may not be the usual approach. You know, I have been canvassing in neighborhoods that I think like other people had barely even come to. Like when I knock on people's doors and I go to them and I talk to them, they're like, "You're the first candidate to whoever has come to me and actually canvassed the person I've ever met and told me about their platform directly."
Wow.
And I'm thinking, you know, there's been so many races before me. And you're telling me that nobody has actually took the time to come to you directly. Yeah. And I will say that may be a byproduct of the neighborhood that they're in. And that's also a problem. I do think some people see some neighborhoods as low potential. They see the turnout as lower, so they don't take the energy to invest into that neighborhood. But to me, again, I think that in some ways, still every vote matters. So even if you are in a quote unquote lower voter turnout area, you should still be a priority because going back to the importance of one vote, especially in a local race versus the presidential race, one vote can really change a lot of things. Like
absolutely.
We have examples of where one person, I think a little while ago, there was a race in some county in Mississippi where there was a tie. They were both tied, and the race was decided by a flippable coin or some other little. Wow! Yeah, look it up. I can't quote it all the way, but there was one race where it was decided by a flippable coin. And just think that if one more person voted, that other person would have won. Yeah. And so, you know, and I want to make that clear that your vote does still matter on a presidential level, but especially on a local level,
absolutely.
Those races are too close for you to think that your vote won't count. Yeah. And so, you know, just going back to the point about being a frequent voter, it is to your advantage to be a frequent voter because it also shows that you are regularly engaged. Because politicians, their main goal, unfortunately, sometimes in some ways, is to get reelected. And so they have to work to the people who they know are going to
Yep.
vote. And so if you don't vote frequently, also if you're not constantly being engaged with your elected officials, your impact that you can have will be decreased.
Yep. There's so many ways we can go here.
Yeah.
But I do want to say this, Germany, to your point. Um, it it's there's so many smart things you said, because I think what often happens is a lot of people feel the fatigue of being involved and being invested. And you're absolutely right. Local elections are so important. Most people don't realize local elections actually impact you more, again, like you said, than national elections, because you see these people, right?
Yeah.
Like they live on your street.
Yes.
You made me think about, and I'll say this real quickly, and then we can move on. Well, actually, we're going to take a break for a second, but I do want to make this point, because you brought up so many great points in what you just shared. But you made me think about this book that I'm reading. It's called Picking Presidents. The writer of this book is a professor at Harvard, and in this book he talks about, there's one passage I was literally just reading it the other day that it shook me, like when he said it. He has this passage where he talks about power, and he talks about power generally exposes people's character. And he makes the point that either people use power to turn inward or they turn outward. And he makes this point that has stayed with me after I read it. He said power, no matter if it's positive or negative, is a liberating force.
Oh, wow.
I thought that was such a profound statement, because what it indicated to me was, if we are expecting somebody to lead us or do something, we have to have a recognition that at the end of the day, it will expose more about them and the person we empowered than anything.
Yeah.
But also, there's a requirement of us as people in the public to hold them accountable to use power for good. And so I'm excited for your race, and excited for you to have this opportunity to articulate. I'm actually not shocked or overly blown away by the fact that some people haven't been talked to, because I was literally listening to a podcast that was talking about this. They were talking about the stratification of media. It's going to become even more important for candidates to canvass, because more than likely people are not seeing your social media stuff, right? Like, unless you got the money to do media, they may not see it at all. And so I think a lot of your points are so great, and I'm super excited for the things you do. But we're going to take a moment right here, and we'll be right back after this event. Want to promote your business, products, or services? Email me at scottconsultations@gmail.com. I would love to push forward the banner of what you're trying to accomplish, whether it is a product, whether it's your services or your business. I would love to work with you and be an advocate for what you're doing in your respective spaces. Thank you, and I look forward to hearing from you. Hi, everybody. Lee here. I want to talk to you real quick about something that's super important, and that is voting. As you well know, we are in an election season, and it's going to be really vital that you and I are people that know how to vote and know if we have things in right order. So I would encourage you. Today is National Voter Registration Day. Today is September 17th. It's National Voter Registration Day. And so it's super important that people like you and I ensure that we are registered to vote. Check and see if you are, check about your voting precinct, know where the polls are, know all these different things, because it's going to be super important in your communities. Hey, elections are just not about the national ticket. There are things that happen in your city. There's things that are happening in your county, in your state, and in our nation. And it matters that you make your voices heard. So I encourage you, check your voter registration today. Take the time to find out if you are registered to vote and if you are in the right place for voting. So check your voting registration today. Much love, and I hope in November you'll make sure that you get out and vote. See you soon. And we are back. Thank you all for being here and listening to this episode. I'm talking to the candidate for District 3 for Hinds County Election Commissioner, yes. Jermany Gray, and it's been a great conversation. Jermany, I was reflecting on some of the things that we're talking about a little bit earlier, but I want to ask you about this in particular because you made reference to the presidential election that's happening. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of people, this is going to be their first election like you. 2020 was your first presidential. My first presidential was 2012. 2012. Obama's second term. So, it's an interesting thing when thinking about your first opportunity to cast a vote for thing. And I remember my first gubernatorial. It was the year before when here in Mississippi, the former mayor of Hattiesburg, Johnny Dupree, was the first African American to ever be a major party nominee in the state of Mississippi, and I got an opportunity to vote in that election. Now he ultimately lost to Phil Bryant, but just the optics of somebody that looks like me was several votes away from possibly winning that office, and I wonder if voter participation was higher or people were engaged in politics, how that would have turned out. But that's kind of beside the point. The question I have for you, because it's not about what I'm talking about, but the question I'm having for you is, I said all that because I'm wondering what your thoughts about just millennials and Gen Z, right? I was listening to something maybe about a week or so ago that was saying that Gen Z is now the largest voting bloc in America. Statistically, it's like you all and us millennials are the largest voting blocs by demo and age, election. And you spoke of the possibility of us electing the first woman to the presidency, who just so happened to be a Black woman, which is even cooler. And so we have this moment where we're navigating that. What do you think about the impact of your generation being able to get involved in this election, and how do you think it can impact present and even future elections?
Oh, yes. I do think that my generation, we will force politicians to change how they campaign to people. I think we're already seeing that with Kamala Harris. I remember I saw a headline a little while ago that said that, sorry, boomers, you're not Kamala Harris's favorite generation anymore. And I feel like that's because Kamala Harris, and other candidates too, I won't act like Trump being on that podcast with that random man wasn't an attempt to appeal to a younger generation. It's
very strategic too. He in an interesting way is a fascinating political strategist. It's very interesting, his political instinct. But continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah. He's strategic, and he knows how. In a lot of ways, Trump, and I'll give other politicians too. He knows what he's doing, or at least he has people on his team who knows what they're doing. And so, my generation, we have a lot of untapped potential. And I will say, with our experiences, we have experienced a lot of things. I know each generation has their, I'll say, like monumental moments, or like there was 9/11, then there was Katrina.
Come on, yep.
Yeah, the Katrina. But we experienced, it wasn't directly for us, but at least growing up, we had Barack Obama, the first Black president, for 2 terms. And then we experienced a Trump presidency. And then we experienced a global pandemic. Yep. And so we have had a lot of life-altering moments. And so I do think there is...
School shootings have happened more in your generation than which is...
Oh, yeah. I was shocked to hear that apparently before 1999 or so, school shootings weren't a theme like that. Apparently, like that's more of a, well, I guess more of a recent development. And so we have had these experiences that have really caused us to look at our environment, look at what's going on. And so I do think that now younger people are very engaged. I will say maybe, and I'm saying that 'cause I remember yesterday somebody said that I was at a panel discussion featuring the mayor, Jackson, the mayor of Memphis, Tennessee. And the mayor of Memphis, he said that from older politicians, he was told that when you see young people in the room, don't go to them because they don't vote. And I think that this reflects a sentiment that I do think other younger people, they were probably engaging too, but I do think that now that Memphis mayor, he was saying part of the reason why he did win was because he worked with the youth. He really poured into them and showed them what he wanted to do with his platform. People are realizing that now the youth do hold a powerful voting block. And also that the youth, we are very passionate about certain things. I'm thinking about the conflict with Israel and Palestine. That has been a very strong talking point for some people because they know that, opinions around that conflict really do sway younger people, as we saw with the protests that happened on college campuses. And so in the coming years, and as we will see with this election, we're going to see a real big shift in the ways that politicians attempt to reach people. And I hope that, I really do, one of my big, I will say, fear that I think about is that people may become disengaged a little bit if politicians, if they make this big shift to appeal to younger people, but in the end, they don't hold up on their promises.
Right.
I do think that's going to cause a lot of people to become disengaged. I do think the cycle of becoming disengaged, I think we all, maybe in theory, we all go into it hoping that we can be a part of the change. But at some point, we get discouraged, and then we kind of fall off a little bit. And so I really do hope that if these politicians are going to try their best to appeal to us, like I'm thinking about Kamala Harris saying it's a brat summer, in all these different ways to appeal to younger people. If they're going to be trying to appeal to us, I really hope they hold true to what their promises will be.
Yeah, and your point is exactly right. It's twofold. It's getting them in office, but then also holding them accountable. Mm-hmm. And it is also keeping in mind that whoever is in those other seats matters too, right? You are Germany in a down ballot race, right? Mm-hmm. It matters that on the same ballot that we're voting for president and Congress and senator and other elected positions, that your name is on that ballot, right? It matters. It affects voters' turnout. The turnout will be higher in your election simply because it's during a presidential year, right? And so, the important thing for people to keep in mind is that, listen, like you said earlier, we are so laser focused at the top of the ticket sometimes that we don't recognize all these other races matter. And they can have a big impact. And to your point, I think it's really important for folks to recognize that they are part of a solution, right? Mm-hmm. If you want this particular politician to do really well in their position, give them a majority in the legislative body in their community, whether it be local, whether it be a county or state or federal. Like, every system, everybody has different systems. What did you want to say? I'm sorry.
I was going to say that I think people need to see politics, or at least see these different races and these different offices as building blocks.
Yeah,
they all work together to build the overall pyramid. And so, I'm thinking about what presidential. We're thinking about what Joe Biden. I'll go back to President Biden and his push to get the student loans forgiven. Biden, I think more than any other president before him, has made a really strong effort to get student loans forgiven on a large mass scale. And he did his part, but unfortunately, that effort was stopped by the Supreme Court.
Right.
The Supreme
Which is another part.
That's another part, and we can talk about the rationale, whether or not it's legit or not. But we can also just talk about how, and also just talk about how every election is important. Our Supreme Court, under our previous president, President Trump, I think he appointed at least 2 or 3 Supreme Court justices to the Supreme Court.
He got 3, yeah.
And so they all, for the most part, lean to a conservative view. And we can go back and talk about the what ifs. What if we did elect somebody else? What if they did have the opportunity to appoint different justices? Just going back to the point of how this all plays together. Because I always say this too. I always want to be clear about that too. Clear about this. Don't think that electing one minority, like one black person, one young person, one woman, don't think that's going to fix everything. It will help us move forward. It's great. It's great for breaking glass ceilings. But please don't place the expectation that one person is going to be able to fix the entire system. And I do think that, I also say with Barack Obama, during his presidency, I do think that a lot of people place the expectation that Barack Obama was going to fix everything for black people in 4 years. And so, he did what he could do in 8 years. But, I think we need to have realistic expectations about how this system works. Yeah. It does work by us having that power on the federal level, on the state level, on the local level. It all plays together. And so I think when we think about it in the terms of a graph and a little triangle, when we think about it visually in that way, I think it really will help people understand how all parts have to play together.
Yeah, I think, Jeremy, that was a great point. Because in just a little tidbit, you and I know this to be true. It seems to be a reality, particularly in our state, that we do need to pay attention, even more attention, to state legislative races. We need to run candidates everywhere. We need to be paying attention to county races, like you are running for a county race. Yeah. Because it is completely a disservice that we continuously deal with certain things in our state, where literally the reason why we're not getting progress on things like Medicaid expansion is simply because of politics. Yeah, that's it. Even conservative states have conservative states like North Carolina and Louisiana, even Kentucky and other places have done Medicaid expansion. And the reason why they won't take that money from the federal government is because it's deemed to be coming from the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare, and so they're still operating in bad policy because it is not, in their minds, it's not politically salient for them. Even though the vast majority, even though it's like has an 80 or 90% approval rating, right? Yeah. And so we see a lot of that, but we could stay on that point all day, and we don't have time for that, Jeremy.
I will say very quickly your point about focusing on those local races. At least for like state legislators, a lot of those races go unopposed. It's the same old people running for the same old positions and getting elected. And so, to your point very quickly about building up candidates to actually face people, I don't know, that's another tidbit, but we can talk about why Mississippi is red. I don't think it's purely because Mississippi is conservative. I don't think that's true. But I think it's because we need to do a better job of finding people, preparing them, and having them be in the right position at the right time, at the right place to hold these positions.
And to your point, be thinking strategically about not only do we want to win the seat, but how can we work together to ensure that all of us are singing from the same page in this book? How can we understand collective power? And it's not about collective power for pushing just agendas, but literally working in unison to really, really move some stuff on some very important issue, right? You're trying to push me towards talking about my political philosophy, but that's not what this episode is about. This episode is about you, Jermany, So we're going to keep it focused on you, the candidate. So, in talking about elections, because I got a few more questions, and we'll get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
But talk a little bit about, if you would, share some things that you feel strongly about as it relates to how people can get involved and support campaigns and candidates. You know, one of the things that I think there are people that are like, okay, well, we'll support Jermany, but I may not live where Jermany is, or I may not be in his district, or I may not be in the area where he's trying to win the seat. How can I get involved? What can I do? I feel this energy. I feel inspired, but what can I do with that energy?
And with this answer, I'll probably be addressing the presidential race a lot with my answers. But I'm thinking about when Kamala Harris first announced that when Joe Biden first announced that he was going to be stepping down as the presidential nominee, Democratic presidential nominee. And Kamala Harris was, she accepted the position to help push the party forward. One thing that was really powerful was the public response. The public, there was so much energy, there was so much enthusiasm. And even I'm thinking small things like people posting a Kamala Harris picture, on your own individual page, people who probably don't even ever talk about politics, them posting that picture, that helps push things forward. And I think with candidates, both local and federal, it's all about reaching people. And I do think that I'll say personally, I probably need to do a better job of helping people understand how even just a simple sharing of a campaign picture, how for a local candidate, especially I'll say for a first time candidate, it helps push the ball forward. Yep. And so if you are, if you can donate, I understand, especially, I'll say maybe, because I will say too, if you can donate to Kamala Harris, you can donate to a local candidate too. Just to say that though,
that's real.
I'll just say though, I love Miss Vice President Harris, but the organizing calls, I love that energy. But I just thought to myself, if we could have that same energy for local candidates in our community, where could we be right now? And so, while I will give the grace that I know people have financial situations where they may not cannot donate that much, but I do think after seeing so much energy and so much enthusiasm, especially with Kamala Harris, I'll say, because she proudly, and she should, boasts about how much money she has raised in such a short amount of time. I do think the money is there, but I do think maybe the candidate too, we have to work on pulling the money out of people. But at the same time, if you can do it for another candidate, I'm sure you can do it for other candidates too. And so I do think that some people, I don't know, I think it's very complicated about how you build trust for candidates. I do think on a small level, maybe people are more doubtful. And so there needs to be more intentionality into building trust with candidates on a local level. But I do think that, beyond the money, again, spreading word of mouth helps a lot. Because if you don't know anybody with money, I'm sure somebody, knows somebody with money. And so I hate to talk about money that much, but money is really huge with running a campaign. You can't really escape it because everything, and I'll say even printing flyers, even one flyer, I think one flyer is about $1. And so, we're talking about small donations. I'll say recently, and I'll say this quickly, I'm organizing a candidate forum, and I wanted to help spread the word about it. And, it was crazy for me, but I realized that, to help spread the word, you need to actually print a flyer out so people can see it, especially for, older people. And I'll say printing out 20 copies of, maybe 25, I think it was 30 copies or so, was about $20. And so, give or take, $20 or so. And we talk about the importance of smaller donations. Yeah. Like people think, well, I don't know, I only got like $5 to give. $5 could be 5 copies.
Right. No, absolutely.
Copies, yes, can help
absolutely
move things forward in the ways that people really doubt. And so, even if it's with small donations, it really does add up. And this also the spreading the word of mouth, because I do think that I am, I'll say, remiss to see at sometimes. Like, I think that there's so much energy on the federal level, and at federal level to promote campaigns and this. But I think that if there's a fraction of that attention could be given on a small level, it can really help push things a lot further. And so, let's post about them, share, and also there's word of mouth. Word of mouth goes a lot further. Talk about these candidates in rooms that their name may not be brought up in. And also, I'll just say this too: just send your own personal motivation, because it is a process running for office, and it can be very. It's a game of endurance. And so sending your own form of encouragement, that goes pretty long too. And it's helping out in whatever way you can. I really don't, I guess it's hard for me to accept the thought that, we're all helpless in some way. Whatever you can do it. Like Michelle Obama, said. Michelle Obama said, do something. And whatever you can do, I know it will be impactful.
That's great. I think all of that was insightful and helpful for people. Let's kind of get to the last few questions that I might have for you. When this episode comes out, it's going to be a little bit past the date, but National Voter Registration Day is September 17th. Mm-hmm. And particularly here in Mississippi, just so people know, this episode is coming out before that. The last day to check your voter registration and ensure that you're able to vote is October 7th.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So, Jermany, could you talk a little bit about the importance of checking your voter registration as someone who wants to do the work of monitoring and ensuring that people have ballot access? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. I'll say, as an election commissioner, one of our main jobs is maintaining the voter roll. And especially within recent elections, I'll say from one party or so, there have been real concerns about voter fraud, people who are ineligible voting in elections. And particularly right now, I'll say last year or earlier this year too, during our legislative session in Mississippi, there were stricter guidelines passed around ensuring that the voter roll is accurately kept. And I will say again, as the election commissioner, we do have the responsibility of helping to assist with the purging. Purging being the removal of voters from the voter roll. And I went to a session, and I always try to go to different informational sessions around election integrity, so I can be informed about the work that I will be doing. I'm speaking to assistant as the next election commissioner. And so I attended a session a little while ago around election integrity, and they said that Hinds County in Mississippi, Hinds County specifically, we are the largest county in Mississippi. We purged 40,000 people before our last general election.
Goodness gracious.
And now they're passing, or at least are in the I think Mississippi did it too in some way, use it or lose it type of legislation. They're saying that if you, going back to my point about being a frequent voter, I think the rule is if you haven't voted in the last 2 federal elections, you're going to be moved to you're going to be moved to the inactive list and be more vulnerable to being purged. And so it's very important that you are an active voter, because if you're not active, you'll eventually be removed. And I would hate for it to be a situation where, we're talking about, or at least I've been talking about, like the fact that maybe there won't be a ballot at the poll. That concern. It's going to be an even bigger problem if you're not even in the poll book.
Right.
And so it's not even going to matter for you. Right. And so it's very important that you not only check your voter registration, but again, be an active voter, even if it's just, no, I was going to say maybe you could do every other election. No, do every single election. Yes. Do every single election, because it really does matter, to maintaining your active status, because, just to, give some legitimacy to the claims around voter fraud in some way. We do need to have elections that are full of integrity, that are fair, and that where the right people are being able to vote.
Yes.
I'll say in Texas. Now, I will say in general, these claims of fraud may be hyped up in some ways, but I will say in Texas, they found about, I forgot the exact figure, but thousands of people who were ineligible to vote, but they still voted in that state. And so, within these coming years, there's going to be a real strict push to make sure that the people who are on the record are eligible and are frequent voters, so we can make sure that the right people are voting. And so, again, it's just important for you to check your voter registration. And don't do it now. Don't wait till the day of, because we're not one of those states. We could be, but we're not one of those states with same day.
Not there yet.
Yeah, we got a lot of other things we got to move forward to. We'll get there though. But I'll say with us, we do have just some fears around having safe and fair elections. So we'll get there eventually. But we're not there right now. So if you're not on the books, you're just going to be out of luck. And so check your voter registration right now before the deadline to make sure that you are able to vote. And that's something that we really need to stress for people. And as the next election commissioner, I really want to be more transparent about our purging deadlines, because a lot of people don't know that you will be removed from the voter record.
Yeah, I'm glad you are keeping that in mind, and there are some other things that I would say, particularly about that subject of closing polling stations and not informing the public. The big issue too, right? So people getting purged could literally be that they are registered to vote, but then they find out that their polling station got moved at the last moment, and they don't have the time or the opportunity to go back to do that. And one thing I want to say, and I want to be on a record as saying this thing. I think I agree with the sentiment that we need to standardize election day. Yeah. It should be a national holiday. It should not be that, and that's not just about national elections, but we're talking about every election should be standardized. I mean, it's wild that we have elections in the middle of March, or we'll have an election in even we were just talking off camera about an election we have here in Jackson for a city council seat. It's not on election day.
October.
That's so random. Just put it on election day. There is a special election. People just filed the paperwork 3 weeks ago. Why are you having a special election on a random Tuesday in October when the national election is 2 weeks? It's 2 weeks right after. We need to be intentional about ensuring that all people have an opportunity to have their voices heard when it comes down to the people that represent them, and it's somewhat of a disservice when we don't standardize things. But again, we know there are some efforts to suppress votes and also to ensure that some people don't get involved in the electoral process, because they got to remember that the election was on April 7th on a Tuesday. On April 7th, and they're like, okay, I got to vote in this election. Then, that's the primary. Okay, then when is the actual election? And the election is on some, you know what I'm saying? I'm not telling you what to do on the commission, but maybe you can push for standardization of, maybe every election needs to be the first Tuesday in November. I don't know.
It will be nice. That will be nice.
I mean, it will be incredible. But moving on. To get to the last few questions I have for you. Thank you for coming on, Jeremy. I think this has been a great conversation, and I hope you've been inspired by what you have to share. But I tend to ask these questions to any guest that comes on here. Yes. What are some of the things that you're doing as far as personal development? What are some things you're listening to or reading that's kind of helping you invest in yourself right now?
Well, yes. Right now, I'm pursuing my master's degree in public policy and public administration. And I will say my concentration is community and economic development. And,
wow.
Yes. And so this semester, I am in a community economic development course. And just that knowledge, and also my other classes in general, they're helping me enhance my understanding of how community and could work, and also just how administration, serving people, what that looks like. And one thing that really stuck out to me was recently with my community development class, talking about how there are different parts of the community that helps it thrive and shapes the community. And one being the fact of having community morale, having this sense of pride in where you stay.
Yeah.
And I remember asking my professor, how can we work on our morale, I would say particularly in Jackson? Because I do think that's something that we do lack with. And he brought up the example of how in Texas, apparently, when they do the pledge, they also pledge to the Texas state flag with the star. And so, I don't know if you know anybody from Texas per se, but Texas people are very prideful.
Oh, yes, they are.
Yeah, they love their state. And
yes, they do.
Yes, things like that help build community.
Right.
And so I'm just thinking about with our community, how we can really build up a stronger love for it. I do think that, especially when we're talking about why do people litter, why do people dump tires and this and these other problems. Part of it is because they don't value where they stay. I don't know if we've done a good enough job to help them value where they stay. And I will say too, that's why I will say I get a little sensitive. And I don't like using that word too much, but I'll say a little sensitive about these disparaging conversations around Jackson. Like saying, oh, that's just Jackson. Jackson that has been down, he ain't going to be no better.
Yeah.
Things like that tell me again that we don't have a good sense of morale, a good sense of value of our community. And so that class and this other things that I learned in that class has really helped me really try to expand my way of thinking.
That's great. This is, I have a comment about that. We'll talk about that off camera, and we'll discuss that at some point. But that was great. My second to last question is, how are you paying it forward? Obviously, you got in this race because you saw an opportunity to step into the plate and do something. And there have been people that have influenced your life in many, many ways, and have brought you to this place where you're saying, hey, I need to do something. What are some of the ways you're paying it forward? And I ask people this all the time because it was asked of me some years ago, or it was stated to me some years ago about women who really impacted my life, that I always have that framework. So how are you paying it forward?
In one way, I'm trying to pay it forward by documenting my experience as a first-time candidate, because I do think that this is a field, a very interesting field to break into. And while we do, now that I've been in the process for a while, I do know of some more like candidate training assistance programs and this. When I was thinking about breaking into it, I was really just breaking out throwing a baby in the water and hoping I swim. And so I think that like just from even like small things, organizing a candidate committee to help me manage my funds, help setting up, I would say for a Democratic candidate, setting up my Act Blue account, doing press releases, even the small things, putting up signs. I'm really trying to, with my experience, document that process so people can see like these are, I would hope they'll see like the building blocks. Like I didn't just become a candidate yesterday.
Yeah.
He did this, and then he did that, and then he did that. And so, all in all, I really want to help people replicate my experience, because I do think above anything, my bigger purpose would be to inspire more young people, and also just people in general, to run for office. Because some people, I'll say, I was a poll watcher during the primary election last year, and at my polling place, I saw one of my old professors, and he was just like, "Oh, what you're doing with your life, la 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 la," and I was just like, "Yeah, I'm running for office," and he was like, "Wow, that's really amazing." And he said, "I've been thinking about running for office for a while now, but things happen," and so he was just like, "But because I see your your effort, see you and your campaign. I'm really going to give it some strong consideration because I always say, and no, maybe I don't mean to say this in a way of selling myself short per se, but to me, if I can do it, so can you. And
That's
so,
great.
and if you need assistance with doing it, I'm here to help you too. Being also hopefully that resource for people. And so all around, I do think that there's real power in story. There's real power in sharing your journey with people. And also with being on this journey, I really have been very intentional about bringing people, especially younger people, along with me. I'll say with my candidate forum that I organized, I was very intentional. I'm a JSU student, and not to be too biased, but I was a JSU student. So when it came down to actually recruiting people to help me, work and organize this candidate forum, my first thought was to reach back into my school.
Yeah.
Pull from within first, and also particularly pull from the students first. Because I'll say for me, I would have loved to have the opportunity to engage with candidates on this level, and also have more of a bigger voice at the table. To be included in that process. And so I'm grateful to say that I will be having some students working with me with the candidate forum, and I really do love the thought of them having that experience and being engaged in that way. And so just trying to find opportunities to involve more people, and I look forward to paying it forward even more when elected, because I really want to have more internships, especially for our high school and college students, because
That's great.
being able to, it's already a thing where you can have interns as an election commissioner, but I don't know why it hasn't been explored previously. But I really want to have more interns in that office. I want people to be assisting in this work, because above anything, while I do think that I am the best person for this position right now, I don't think that I will be the best person for this position forever. It's
Right.
going to come a time where, as it should, there's going to be somebody coming behind me who wants and who can do the job better. And so I really want to help train the next generation of leaders, and also just get more people to be engaged in this electoral process, because this part of it, they don't really teach this part in school as much.
Yeah.
Elections and stuff, ballot control, making sure ballots are printed, all those more logistical things. This is a more detailed experience. And so I really want more people to have that experience. And also other things, I want to work to increase, to recruit more young poll workers, because, while we do appreciate the older ladies who are at the polls, it will be great to see somebody who looks like me, who looks like you, Lee, to be at the poll, who will be eager about helping us vote. And so all around, I am working to be very intentional about bringing more young people on this journey with me.
Yeah, that's such a great answer, and I'm super excited for the opportunity for you to implement these things and really get out there and do it. And I'll say this on camera. I was literally talking to somebody about you a few days ago, and just my excitement for seeing you get into this race. And in Germany, you're doing the work, man, and it's incredible to watch. And I've been so excited and so inspired by your commitment to the work that you're doing, and your desire to get into this work, and because it matters to every other thing that happens in our community, in our city. So thank you for having the courage, because you're influencing a lot of us. I got one more question and we'll get out of here. I'm gonna ask every single person that comes on here this question. I would ask, if you had a song that you would use to describe yourself, what would it be, and why would it be that song?
Right now, my go-to song has been Almost There, the Coco Jones version from The Princess and the Frog.
Come on, Coco.
I love my girl Coco. Shout out to her. She may be watching, so hey, Coco. And my girl Coco, she did the remix of this song, and really I'll say first off, The Princess and the Frog may be my favorite Disney princess in general. The first black first black Disney princess. So she's amazing. And also, I didn't grow up in New Orleans, but I went to college in New Orleans. And so I do think I have a special connection to New Orleans. And so all in all, that's one of my favorite princesses. And also, I loved the song Almost There before, and then when Coco did her thing on it, it made it even better. And this with the lyrics as to why that song was really resonating with me right now. Just the beginning parts about, I don't have time for messing around. I don't have time for dancing. That's not my style. This realization that I do think for me right now, I'm in a very much of a working era. I'm trying to get to a point. I'm trying to fulfill a mission, I think.
Yeah.
And so, knowing it's like, I don't have time for this right now. I have to keep the focus, keep the faith. And, also the part about just saying, like, I'm almost there. I'm almost there. Especially as we're approaching Election Day. Yeah. And also just this goal of helping my community improve. I really do think that I'm making great progress with that. And all around, I do think that my campaign is bigger than me. I think that it's just connected to a bigger purpose. And so I do think that I'm almost there to reaching whatever that bigger purpose is and making that impact that I want to see.
Well, Jermany Gray, it's been so fun to have you on, my friend. I'm super excited for your campaign. Keep knocking doors. Shameless plug. Mm-hmm. I don't typically do this, but if you will share where people can find out more about your candidacy and stuff on your, I'll give you a moment to share that real quick.
Yes, sir. So my website is citizensforgermanygray.org. Again, citizens for FOR, germanygray.org. My social media pages are all Citizens for Jermany Gray. It will pop up, and on my website will give you all the information you need on how you can get engaged, you can volunteer, donate, all those great things.
All right, my friend. Keep doing the work, my friend.
Thank you, Lee. I really appreciate you for allowing me to come on this platform. I didn't get the chance to mention it earlier, but these races, like a down ballot race, it doesn't receive as much attention. So I really appreciate this platform and all the work you do for the community.
And we got to look out for Change Collective, fam.
Yes,
all right, Jermany.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching and or listening to this week's episode of Leading with Lee. If you have not done it yet, subscribe on YouTube and all podcasting platforms. If you want to get more information and connect with me, visit me at www.leeascott.com or follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Lee A. Scott II or Lee A. Scott II. So, thank you for watching, much love, and let's get started.